A very warm welcome to everyone from IT Next in association with Juniper. We'll be starting the session now, and today's topic is changing the economics of hacking. What is replacing next-gen firewalls? So your next-gen firewall investment is giving you some peace of mind on egress traffic, but what about hacking attempts and DDoS attacks that aim to disrupt and steal from data center applications? For the vast majority of incidents, at 72%, attackers are able to compromise the victim very quickly. In over half the incidents investigated, it took months, sometimes even years, for the realization to dawn. So if your security strategy is to try and stop the web attack, you're already too late. Today's speaker, Mr. Rakesh Singh, Senior Technology Consultant with Juniper Networks, will talk about how to upgrade your data center security from the reactive approach to the proactive. Rakesh is a senior consultant in Juniper, providing network consulting for major customers in India. In his current role at Juniper, he drives strategic solution initiatives and technology architectures which uniquely help our customers in their businesses. So Rakesh has been an integral part of the telecom and networking industry for 14 years in various capacities, from design, driving technology directions, and managing solution focus across many IT and telecom companies in his career. Now, Rakesh, I would request you to take over and start the presentation.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, guys, for joining. I would like to take about 45 to 1 hour today to talk about this topic. I would like to give a bit more time for questions. So if you have questions, not just on the slide pack that I'm using, but anything security in general, I will be open for any of those. So I have divided the slide pack or the today's session. The first part is going to be talking about the security landscape in general, what is happening, what are the trends, and the second part will talk about what are solutions available from network security perspective that you see in the market. And the third part, I will be talking about Juniper specific solution for the space that we are talking about. This is a generic slide just to get started. This basically talks about, it used to be pretty simple some time back. If you just look at the left-hand side of the things, your device used to go to your data center, and your data center front-end servers used to access your data which is there in the same data center. Then things started moving weird. Initially, people started moving to a hosted data center. Then finally, they are moving to a third-party data centers. And now data doesn't necessarily sit in a data center. It might be in some other data center. So one of the examples of such kind of application is you have Salesforce.com. Salesforce.com, the front-end server is hosted by a third-party application vendor, Salesforce. But your backend data center might be in your data center, or it could well be in Salesforce data center based on how you have tied it up. And since you have decided to go the Salesforce way, it is very much possible that the data, even if it is in your control, might not be in actually your premise, but might be in NetMagic or Control S kind of environment. So the idea being, it's pretty complicated now. It used to be physically in one location. Now the assets are spread across. So we need to think about that as part of the security. And also on the lower side, if you see, it used to be just your employees which are there in the office. Then it became that any user can bring their device and you have to give them access and still take care of the security. Then now, if you have multiple vendors and customers, if those devices come into picture, the things becomes a bit complicated. This is just to give a background as to the things are not so simple as it used to be 5 years back. From the network perspective, the access that you need to give, the control that you give, needs to be thought of in a very different way. You will see a next slide, which is showing a big picture of data breach security investigation report. This is a very important report. Every year at around November, December, this report is published by Verizon. This is one of the most important report from if you want to understand the security threat or security landscape, how things are moving, how what is happening new or something has changed. So I will be using lots of data points in the next couple of slides based on data breach investigation report. Do make sure you do a Google of that. They have reports for last 4 or 5 years. You can use that and look at for understanding the trend and stuff like that. The most important point to understand from this report is with the present day and age, finance or basically money is the primary reason for hacking. It used to be that college students who have time and who wants to test their skills, they used to do hacking and basically just claim that I'm a big hacker. But now the motivation is different. People have a 9 to 5 job of doing hacking. People go to office in China and Ukraine. There are cities wherein people go in the morning and go back home in the evening. They have a proper 8 hours job, and for them the motivation is totally different. It's financial. And obviously the last part, which is cyber espionage, that remains the biggest concern. That's basically one government or one corporation spying on the other corporation. That motivation remains, but that also might be mostly to do with financial motivation. If you look at the report, this report, this 2013 report was compiled with data from to about 23 countries, which is pretty much a big diverse. If you see, Americas is heavily represented, the Europe, India, Australia, pretty much all the regions where you have a good amount of IT activity happening, it's well represented over there. On the right hand side, if you see something alarming, normally people think hacking might be for those banks and the retail guys needs to worry about it. They need to worry about it. They are the most affected, but others are equally affected. If you say 30%, 37% of financial breach happens for financial organizations, 24% for retail restaurants and physical retail environment, 20% for manufacturing, transport, and utilities, 20% for IT and services companies. And also, if you see, people think if you're a smaller organization, you are pretty much safe. But only 38% of the breach happened for the larger organizations. The rest all were for smaller organizations also. So it doesn't matter whether you're small or big or which industry you are very much part of the target. The hackers are looking out for you. Other thing to see is initially IT security, people used to buy DLP and stuff like that. The main idea was most of the threat comes from internal. The outside threat is there, but I have put up firewall, so most of the things are taken care. But if you see the breach report from the last year, 92% of the perpetrators of attack were from outside the network. Only 14% were committed by insiders. Don't worry about the 100% number, because sometimes it happens that few of the attacks will involve an insider and outsider. So that's why all the numbers don't add up to 100%. It's just individually it's taken down over here. The state, which is basically government, multinational government, international espionage, that also contributed 19%, but mostly from outside attack. You should be very much worried about outside attack. And if you look at the trend over time, the external attack has been increasing, and the internal attack and the partner attack, attacks from partner organizations have been going down. So pretty much be sure that most of the attacks or the most of the breaches that will happen for the traffic which passes through your firewall, and then their data got stolen. What are the methods for doing this breach? 80% of the stealing of data or the breach of data happened via hacking. That means some IT-related illegal activities were performed by some intelligent guy, and he took away your data. 69% incorporated malware. So don't worry about 81 plus 69. It doesn't add up to 100, because it is very much possible that the malware and hacking can be part of the same activity. I will cover that in the next slide. So 69% utilized malware in some way. 10% was physical, 7% was social, basically talking to someone and sending an email and gathering that information. 5% was privilege misuse. That means the access level for that user login was not defined properly, and he was able to escalate his access and get access to unnecessary information. So two things to note over here is that 81% is from hacking and 69% incorporated some kind of malware. So malware, as we understand or as we know, is that some kind of code or some kind of software that is installed in your browser or in your laptop, which will snoop around and collect some data. So normally people associate the malware to be coming from internet. Let's say when you go to a browser, when you are browsing a website, and that particular website is able to inject some malware into your laptop or browser. That is very much possible. That is also one of the causes of infection. But if you see the first one, which is the malware is installed by a remote attacker. So a remote attacker gets access to maybe a web server or one of your internal servers. Then he installs malware in one PC or multiple PCs, so that malware will, even after he loses access, the malware will continue to collect data and send to him. So malware is a big cause, but malware itself, at least for the purpose of breach and for data collection, is normally installed by the hacker itself. If you see the first one, second one, it's pretty much the big ones. And this trend is pretty much common across larger organizations as well as smaller organizations. Let's look at the attack itself. So if you look at the investigation report, normally people assume that hackers decide that this is a website I like and I want to attack that. Yes, that happens, but that happens only for 19%. That means only 19% of the time hacker identifies that this is the website I want to attack and starts looking for vulnerabilities inside the website. But for rest of the other cases, 42 plus 39%, what happens is hacker is normally running a tool and that tool found some vulnerability. Or let's say hacker was doing some casual browsing, he found some vulnerability and he decided to attack. So for rest of the cases, what happens is because the website is not secure, that's why you got hacked. That means his intent was not you specifically. It just so happens that the website is not very secure. There is some coding error, and that's why he decided to take an asset, because every asset accumulated by an hacker can be used to launch attacks on other websites. So targeted attack is very limited. So you should be worried about opportunistic attack. One thing to remember about opportunistic attack is these guys work from 9 to 5. So if it takes 5 hours for your website to be hacked, probably they will get bored and they will leave you alone. But as we will see that actually most of the time it doesn't take 5 hours for a website to be hacked. It takes much lesser time. So this next slide that you're seeing is talking about how much time does the hacker need once he launches the attack versus this attack is successful. Surprisingly, for 72% of the time, it takes minutes, and maybe sometimes it just takes seconds for him to actually basically do a compromise. So he launches a tool, and within minutes and maybe seconds, he gets access to the resources, or he was able to get an entry inside your network. So this is very surprising. Normally, you put up a firewall, you put up an IPS. The basic intent being, if you ask any IT administrator, everyone buys an IPS, but they put it in a logging mode only. They never put it in an active block mode, because they are worried, because at night something happens and the firewall rule kicks in, whether it's a false positive or something, and lots of users will get blocked out and business will be lost and stuff like that. But logging mode is very ineffective. If you see from this slide, it takes minutes. So the next day when you see the log, that's what it is. It's a post-mortem. Already the site was compromised. That guy has entered your network. He has installed a malware and probably is gone now, because the malware will continue to do the job, collect the data for him. So putting in a logging mode or alert mode is pretty much useless from the hacking perspective. That was one side of the story. What about the other side? How do you come to know that you have been logged? How much time does it take for you to be aware that your website has been logged? basically breached. Lots of time you don't even come to know yourself. Somebody else, let's say a media report, somebody has stolen the data and he publishes it online, or one of the security scanner companies who always keep monitoring the trend. Let's say one of the let's say Trend Micro or these kind of companies who monitor what are the attacks happening, which sites are they use automated tools to find out your website has been hacked. So lots of time information comes from that side. In most of the cases, it takes minimum days for people to find out their website has been attacked. In fact, if you take 50% of the cases, it takes months, weeks or months for you to find out. So from the hacker point of view, he is able to compromise in minutes, but for us to know that you have been hacked yourself, for you to find out, it's taking days or weeks, maybe months, and in some cases years. So that basically talks about the state of the security infrastructure we have. The kind of intelligence we are gathering is probably not enough. We don't even know we have been compromised. And this is once you know you have been compromised, you have to start the whole process of investigation, which will take their own time. So we are not even talking about those. We are just talking about knowing that you have been hacked. So let me summarize a couple of bullet points from the landscape that we saw. So 90% of the breaches comes from outside. So your gateway entry or your firewall, you need to do lots of thinking about that. 52% of the breaches are due to hacking. 70% of all attacks are at the web application level. This is very obvious because most of your most vulnerable server are running on port 80 or port 443, and you have configured your firewall to allow access on that particular port. So this is your front facing asset, so it will it's obvious that it will be the big target over here. And 73% of the organizations actually confirmed that in the last 2 years, when they have been hacked, it was basically a web application that was the entry point into your network. 75% are driven by financial motives, and 66% of users said that it took them months to discover. So lots of problems over here. So obviously, since there is a big problem set over here, vendors and security companies like us will be working on some solutions. So let's analyze and let's have a look at the solutions that we have in the market. Yeah. So when you talk about network security, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Obviously, it's a firewall, isn't it? That's the first line of defense. How old is firewall? Firewall is definitely as old as TCP/IP. Right from the initial days, Linux used to have something called as IP tables. You used to configure the IP tables and say, these IPs can connect to me, these IPs cannot connect to me. And then things started getting complicated. So we started building firewalls which can understand the protocols and understand the state of the conversation. So we had stateful firewalls. So we used to say port 80 is allowed only after you complete the three-way handshake properly, and FTP is allowed only if you do all the handshake properly and stuff like that. So that was a good time till the internet became the primary medium of business nowadays online. So when internet became the primary medium of doing business, that means all your things, everything in your that goes outside your organization, or most of the traffic that comes from outside your organization by your guests or your customers is on port 80 or 443. Today ERP works on port 80 or 443. Let's say salesforce.com, file transfer services, Dropbox, or let's say Gmail, everything, all these used to use different ports, but now all types of protocols are actually working inside port 80. So if you open port 80, it's like drilling a hole in a firewall. It's never going to be enough. So that's the reason we had second generation of firewalls. People call it the next generation of firewalls. The idea being, port 80 is very generic, port 443 is very generic. I want to understand that inside port 80, what are the kind of applications? I want to understand what is happening, so that when the users are going to a particular site, I should know whether they are going to a Facebook, or let's say if they are going to a Facebook, whether they are going to Facebook or Facebook video or Facebook image. So you want to say Facebook chat is blocked, Facebook video is blocked, but normal Facebook is allowed, or because it's you also have a corporate presence, so you want people to be interacting on Facebook, but you don't want video and chat because those could be the potential path for malware. So next generation firewalls brings that visibility. So plain simple firewall is not enough. That's pretty clear, because you are forced to drill holes which you don't know what's happening inside that hole. Then the other traditional security product which has evolved over the years is IDS and IPS. Uh, One thing to remember about IDS and IPS, as I was saying, people are scared to implement auto block. So if there is a vulnerability or there is a threat, you people just say log, don't block, because people are scared of that. Other thing is, most of the time, organizations don't have time or understanding or resources to fine tune the IPS. So most of the time, IPS works with the default rule. Because you are saying, anyway, I'm just doing a logging. You just enable all the rule and see logging. You don't do enforcement. You don't do fine tuning. So pretty much IPS is an information gathering tool, but it's not blocking the attack most of the time. Even though the IPS is supposed to do that, but IPS will normally is configured to block only DOS attack or some protocol level attacks. But application level attacks, where someone is actually protocol wise, he is doing everything is fine. He's just logging to a website and trying to hack across. That is not known to IPS, and it's not even blocked. Anti-malware, yeah. So we all know about this. So if you have a laptop and if you have not installed antivirus, within 2 days you will be infected by a virus if you go on the internet. That's for sure, 100%. The reason being, websites are constantly scanning. If you go to any website where you download torrents or you are downloading some music, those websites will observe if you have anti-malware or antivirus installed. If it is not installed, they will inject the code and install the antivirus. One thing to remember about anti-malware and antivirus is, all these things are dependent on signature, mainly dependent on signature. They do have anomaly detection, but anomaly detection will not stop. They will say something is wrong. They will take that file and send it back to your antivirus vendor's website, where he will try to compute whether there is a virus or not. So it's primarily signature based, and anything which is primarily signature based, there's a big problem, because if you are relying on signature, then there is always some guy who will be infected, and then rest of the guys will be protected against that infection. So for day zero kind of problems, anti-malware are not very effective. It's pretty well-known problem. That's why people make sure that patches are fine, so that there are less number of day zero. But in general, firewall, IPS, anti-malware are there to protect you on day one. Sorry, day two, not day zero, you can say, because you have to wait for the signatures to get updated. The next generation firewall also heavily relies on signature. If you administer firewall and IPS, you would have noted that in last, let's say 1 or 2 years, most of the signatures in the sense that 85 to 90% of the signature updates that you get is on basically SQL injection or cross-site scripting. And in the same time, if you see all the big attacks that has happened in last 1 year or last 6 months, Sony's or any one of the bigger banks also, or let's say recently there was a big retailer who lost some 60,000 users' credit card information. All these were hacked using normally SQL or basically cross-site scripting. So for these kind of attacks, which are pure application level, writing a signature is, you can keep writing, but still there will be someone who will get infected first, and then you will get the signature. In SQL injection, what happens is you are manipulating the string so that this particular string pattern comes, then you block it. So that's what the IPS or firewall will try to do. The problem being, there is an infinite number of possibilities, so you can keep on generating signatures, but most of the attacks are still happening using SQL. So if you look at the firewall market today, there is a product category called as next generation firewall. The focus of that product, by the way, Juniper also has this next generation firewall, is it gives you visibility into what is the traffic that is flowing through. So normally it is used for identifying this user is going to this particular website. These are the traffics he is going through. If there is a malware being downloaded by mistake or by purpose from this particular website, the firewall will block it. So it's a gateway level antivirus, UTM, or basically next generation firewall. It is a very good, or it's the one of the important anti-malware tool, because you have to make sure that your user desktops are not infected by anti-malware, because they are a big, they are one of the big reasons for the hacking to take place. But they don't protect from your websites. So remember, initially the firewalls were developed to protect your web servers or any other servers. It was not for user traffic monitoring. The next generation firewall is all about user traffic monitoring and finding if there is a malware being installed on the user laptop. But these next generation firewalls are not doing anything from the hacking perspective. If somebody, let's say if I go to flipkart.com and try to hack something or try to do something, that is not monitored by the firewall because he doesn't have that understanding at all. So there is a new category of product which has come, which tries to solve this problem of web application hacking. It's, by the way, it's called web application firewall for obvious reasons, because it's supposed to block or understand the application and make sure that nothing wrong is happening. So any web server based attack, the way it happens is there is a front end web server, there is a back end business logic, and then there is a database. All the attacks that are directed to the web server are actually directed towards the database server. The idea being, by using a particular combination of keys or queries, you should be able to break the backend database so that it is starts giving you more information that it's supposed to give. So for doing this, if you want to block this, one of the ways the WAF employs it monitors the form field, because the input that goes to the website and to the database is mainly from the form fields, whatever you type in the form. Otherwise, if you're just clicking, there is not much you can do, because all the URLs that is there on a particular website is controlled and well taken care of. So the WAFs monitor the form fields, and if there is a signature pattern that they don't like, they will block it. So again, heavy reliance on signatures. But the problem is, WAF kind of solutions are very good for blocking automated attacks. Maybe if a signature pattern is known, he will start blocking it pretty. It can do a good job, but there are lots of problems to it. One is there is a heavy reliance on signature. Other thing is there is a static attack surface. That means whenever you send a particular kind of traffic, the response that you get is predictable. Once you know that, based on this predictable response, you can find out what is the kind of WAF you have, or what is the kind of front-end web server you are running. Let's say the hacker, one of the main thing he wants to find out is what is the front-end application you are running, whether it's running on IBM WebSphere or Apache server, and what are the back-end database servers. So once you know all these things, you map out what are the assets like in the web infrastructure, then you can guess, oh, since it's running Apache, then you will do some more testing and find out, oh, actually it's Apache running Apache version so and so, so this is vulnerable to this and this attack, so let me do that. So since the WAF itself acts like a static attack surface, that means you can predict, you can find out what is the actual WAF software you deployed. So that WAF itself becomes part of the problem than a solution, because it actually doesn't have a reliance on signature over there. In fact, there is a ready-made tool called it WAF Woof. There is a link over here. It's called WAFW00F .py. Search for this. It's a Python script. You just run the script. It's about 100 lines of code, 120 lines of code. You run this particular code, and you can fingerprint, let's say, particular website like ICICIbank.com, what kind of WAF product it is running. So let's say you run this tool and you find out that the WAF product they are running is from company ABC. Let's say you go to HDFCbank.com and run this tool. You'll find out that HDFC Bank is using a tool from a vendor XYZ. So once you know that the WAF product is ABC or XYZ, remember, WAF uses signatures and lots of predefined configuration, and just like in IPS, most of the time people don't know what is the fine tuning to be done, so they run the default rules. Once you know what are the default rules, you can the hackers will also know what are the rules that it doesn't cover, and you will use those attacks to bypass the attack. So you can fingerprint the WAF itself. This tool already can fingerprint about 20 WAF products. Before I saw this data, I didn't even know that there are 20 vendors in the WAF market. So pretty much it's pretty on top of most of the stuff. Once you fingerprint the WAF, you know what are the rules there, what are the default rules. You can plan to bypass those rules. So it becomes as good as the WAF is not there at all. In fact, it's not just me. There was someone, you do a Google search for analyzing the effectiveness of web application firewall in an inverted comma. There is a source URL also in the down. This particular document talks about that these guys took eight number of WAFs as well as IPS of various models, and they did some testing, and they shared some interesting results. The first thing is they took these boxes, and whatever was the baseline default configuration, they configured those. What was the vendor recommended configuration, they configured those. Let's say a vendor says these are the rules to be enabled, these are the recommended policies to be enabled. They enabled those and ran the tools. When they ran the tool, the testing tool on this, or when they tried to hack this particular website which was protected by such a test device, they found that WAF did a fairly decent job compared to IPS. IPS were not at all effective. But in the second tool, what there are lots of tools available which can understand your application, and based on that they can fine tune the rules of the IPS or WAF product. When they deployed this tool, which customized the rules and generated some new rules so that your website is well protected. So basically, lots of customization was done. Once that customization was done, the effectiveness of IPS was increased by 60%. With this customization or configuration of the rules properly, the IPS product was almost equal to WAF product in terms of effectiveness. What does it tell you? Actually, it tells you one important thing, that WAF actually is a very specialized IPS. In IPS, you have lots of configuration options. Most of them are directed towards network, but the newer IPS, what they do is they have ready-made rules for web application firewall. They say if you are running IBM WebSphere as a front-end server, these are the rules to be applied. If you are running Apache web server, these are the rules to be applied. So they do lots of rules are automatically applied when you select those options. So it's basically advanced IPS where lots of customization is done pre-done for you. Okay, so but if you fine tune the IPS itself, if I'm going to the next slide, if you see this bar graphs over there, the green ones are the ability to block vulnerability with the baseline rule, and the blue ones are the final result when you do the customization and use it. If you see the last two ones, the SourceFire IPS and open source IPS, they have called it unknown IPS. These two products were almost same compared to all the market leading WAF product in the market. So if you fine tune the IPS properly, it will be as effective as WAF. And by the way, if you see the red block, text block that I've put, if the WAF itself is not configured properly, then you are as good as, even normal tools can bypass it. There are ready-made tools which knows that if this is the WAF product, these are the tools that can be used to bypass it by default. So tools are already available. So WAF, just putting a WAF or IPS is not enough. In fact, WAF is just a pre-configured IPS, you can say. So don't assume that you have put a WAF, your web servers or the data behind the web servers are secure. It's not given. You have to do lots of customization. So what I wanted to say was, putting a firewall is not enough. Putting an IPS is not enough. Putting a WAF is not enough, because all these devices needs lots of tuning, and most of the time people don't have the understanding to do the tuning. So the way that things are set up, you just get a log that this violation happened, but there is no direct way of blocking it. Also, there are lots of problems. Let's say if the IPS identifies an attack, let's say WAF identifies an attack, what does it do? Do you want to block that IP? That sounds like a good strategy because he's an attacker, block it. But that's a big problem, isn't it? Let's say Juniper.com, Juniper internal employees are about 7,000 to 9,000 employees. They normally must be using about 2 or 3 proxy servers for us to go out. So when I go to ICICIbank.com, ICICI Bank sees a single IP for, let's say, 4,000 employees which are there in India. So single IP for 4,000 employees. So if one of the employees trying to do a hacking or some illegal activity and ICICI blocks the IP which is coming from Juniper, then basically he's blocking 4,000 other customers. So blocking an IP itself is not effective. So it's very difficult. Even if you identify the attack, what to do, how to do, because you cannot block it. And you think this is extreme? Think about a country like Bahrain. Bahrain has a single IP for 10 million internet users. They funnel all the user traffic that is there in the country through a proxy server so that they can do the monitoring. And when you look from outside world, the whole population of Bahrain comes from a single IP address. So if you block that IP address, you are basically blocking the whole country. So things can be very extreme. So IP address based intelligence is not enough. So what is the Juniper, or what is the solution that I am talking about? So we have a product called as Juniper Web App Secure. This product was acquired from a company called Mykonos 2 years back. Mykonos was a small startup which was having a very specialized product line. We took that company, upscaled the product, and we call it Juniper Web App Secure. But I like the name Mykonos, so I might be using Mykonos or Juniper Web App Secure interchangeably. This product is, we market it as an intrusion deception, not prevention, deception, intrusion deception system. And the important thing, it prevents or blocks the attacks in real time. It doesn't give you a log or something. It actually blocks the attack in real time. Something unique. The way it works is unique. So let's, before we go into details of how it operates, we need to understand what are the phases of a web attack. So there are generally, it's classified as 5 phases. The phase 1 is silent recon. Let's say I am Rakesh Singh. I go to Flipkart.com. I just go to the website. I just keep clicking and seeing. So normal user will just see the result. Let's say if I click on a Flipkart.com and then I click on one of the URLs over there, whatever results come, I just keep on clicking. But if you're a hacker, whatever results come, you do a HTML parser so that you can see what is the HTML code that has come. So at this stage, there is no way for a firewall, IPS, or for that matter, web server to know whether I'm doing this, whether I'm doing a silent recon. So this guy is reading the code and say, okay, let me try out this. He will try out a couple of things, and based on the information he's gathering or the kind of queries I'm sending, the attacker will know what is the front-end infrastructure you're using, what is the back-end database, and what are the firewalls you are using, what are the WAF. And basically, he can figure out those stuff while not actually doing any attack. He's just like a normal user from all perspectives. And second phase, once he identifies these are the front-end servers, these are back-end servers, and then he identifies that this is the possible attack vector. These are the tools I will use to attack. These are the possible known zero-day attacks which I will incorporate for the attack. In phase 3, actually he does an attack. So if you see the phase 3, as we saw from the previous slides, actually takes seconds or maybe maximum minutes. That's it. So you are able to do once you identify the attack, you will try that in phase 3. Either that attack will be successful or it will fail. But in either case, it will be immediate. It will be within seconds or minutes that you will see the effect. Let's say he is able to attack successfully. And in phase 4, what it does is, now he has compromised a particular website. Now he wants to keep coming to this website again and again, without anyone, firewall or IPS, knowing it. So he will try to automate whatever he has done. And also in phase 5, he will install some malware or other software across the server. So even if the original vulnerability is blocked on the web server, he still has a backdoor over there. So if you see this phase of attack, phase 1 when the user comes in, and the phase 5 when the actual data has been stolen and he is actually installing other malware in the network, where does the WAF or basically IPS will try to play? It is in the phase 3, isn't it? Because phase 3 is where I send an attack code. When I send an attack code in phase 3, that's where they will allow or block, or they will raise an alert. Mykonos is a product which starts working from phase 1. Right from the time any normal user goes to, let's say, www.flipkart.com, that's where Mykonos starts observing that user. We will talk into details as to how he does it. But that's the key part. So Mykonos will know weeks or maybe months in advance if a hacker is going to attack. This is like knowing what is going to happen. The hacker is going to attack. I can predict that even before the attack happens. This is very unique. Blocking the attack is fine, but I will predict it much before, because I'm seeing that this guy is doing this activity. He's collecting the data. He's preparing to attack. So how do we understand that this is not a normal user, that's a hacker? Before you understand that, let's look at where or how this product is deployed. From the deployment point of view, this works like a reverse proxy. So it has to be deployed right in front of your web server. It will be after the firewall, right in front of the web server. So any user traffic which comes from the left hand side and goes to the web server actually has to pass through the Mykonos. So Mykonos or our Juniper Web App Secure will be so user from all purposes will actually be transacting with the Mykonos, and Mykonos will translate that data to the web server and get back. The idea being, he is in know of everything. He is not like looking at signature pattern. He actually knows what are the clicks you're doing and stuff. So what he does is the first time you log in, and he will pass your request to the web server. Web server will send a reply. In that reply, Mykonos will insert some garbage code, or basically he will insert some code which will look like as if there is a vulnerability in the web server, or some mistake has been done during the coding of the web server. If I'm a normal user, I will not even see, because I'm just looking at the clicks. I will just keep on clicking and doing my shopping and going away. Hacker will see that when he's looking at the HTML code, that these are the things which are the problem. He will say that there's a particular URL string which I can manipulate. So using at this string, if hacker tries to do something, immediately Mykonos will know that you are not a normal user. Your intent is not good, because you should not even be doing this. You should not even be seeing this. Forget about manipulating those strings. So this is how he entices the hacker. So other product, the problem is, how can you be sure this is an actual user or a hacker? In our case, it is 100% sure that this is a hacker, because you are not even supposed to look at this code. If you look at this code and start interacting with it or start playing with it, immediately I know you are a hacker. So this is the way to identify the hacker. Once I identify the hacker, I can do lots of other deception. That means, let's say if he is trying to do directory traversal in a website. Normally all the directory traversal is blocked in the modern websites. You cannot see the directory structure. But let's say hacker says, I want to do directory traversal, and Mykonos has already identified that this guy is up to some mischief. Then Mykonos will give a dummy directory traversal to him. So he will think he's actually doing a directory traversal of the server, but actually the Mykonos has put some directory traversal dummy which he is passing through. Let's say if he finds some configuration file, HTTD configuration file, which is the, let's say, Apache web configuration file. If he looks for that, Mykonos will say, okay, he will give a dummy file. So based on that file, hacker will think, I know how the server is configured. So all the while, normal users are not even affected, because normal users are identified by Mykonos as if not doing any mischief. They're allowed to go through. Hacker will start interacting with the Mykonos. Mykonos is now giving him false information. Web server doesn't even know that Mykonos has started intercepting this particular user. So this is the way we identify that this is a hacker or a normal user. This is with 100% certainty we identify. What about how can we be certain that this IP address doesn't have thousands of users behind it? How can I identify a user out of the hundreds behind an IP address? The way Mykonos does is, once the first request comes and I send a reply back, in that reply I send two things. One is a cookie, which is normally sent by all websites, but apart from the cookie, I send a small fingerprinting code. It's a Java-based code. Normally, let's say you go to ICICIbank.com or any Flipkart.com, they will download some Java code, because most of the dynamic nature of web page is using Java code. So you will see the Java code. That Java code will collect some data, and that's how I know what are the data being collected. So we collect about 200 plus attributes. These are like, what is the screen resolution, what is the driver, what is the mouse configuration, what is the keyboard layout, what are the fonts installed. All these things, which are small things, they have got no significance value from identification point of view. But when you identify all these 20 parameters, then it becomes a unique fingerprint. All this, so let's say some user changes the data card and puts a new data card. Instead of Airtel, now he takes, let's say, Vodafone data card, and he changes the IP address, and he comes to the website again thinking now nobody will know. But his IP address has changed, but rest all parameters, I will again do a signature check and find out that out of 200 parameters, IP address and MAC address have changed, but everything else remains same. So I can identify the hacker. So I can identify the user or a particular device, not just the IP address. So that way I can be very specific. So when I decide to take an action, I can drop this particular session, not a particular IP address. So which is very effective. So even if, let's say, 4,000 employees of Juniper going to ICICIbank.com, ICICIbank.com decides to block Rakesh Singh because he's doing something wrong over there, only Rakesh Singh is affected. Others will not be affected, because Mykonos is able to identify the device, or the user, not the actual IP address. As we said, in IPS or in firewall, what are the rules? You can allow the session or block the session or IP address, or you can lock the IP address. In Mykonos, you have lots of options. So I can warn, I can just put up a warning saying, boss, I think you're doing something wrong. Do you want to continue? I can obviously block the user. That's the easy part. Other is I can force a captcha. That means if I identify that you are running a tool, I can put up a pop-up saying whatever you see, you type it here. Basically, as soon as I do that, a hacker will have to manually intervene. So his scripts will break. So he cannot run the scripts. Then he will start doing manually. So once he starts hacking manually or exploring manually, only for this session, I can make sure that the first time the response is 5 milliseconds, the second time the response is 10 milliseconds. The response gets slower and slower every time. So this guy will take huge amount of time to hack. So he will just say, fed up, let me just leave it. Or I can simulate a broken connection. Even though web server is running, for this user, whenever whatever IP address it comes from, I will keep saying the website is down, or 403 error or something like that. I can log out. So lots of actions can be taken, which is very unique. It's not allow block. I can do lots of throttling down and stuff like that. Pretty effective. So based on the data that I collect, okay, this user, I gave him a particular directory traversal. He did the directory traversal. Then I gave him configuration file. He took the configuration file and did something. Based on what all action he took, the Mykonos creates a hacker profile. So he will, based on the signature, he said this guy with this signature, I will give him a dummy name called as, in this particular case, OCHERA, Ocker 6641. And this guy did all so many things. Because of that, I know what is his skill level. If he was able to do so and so things, that means his skill level is high. So Mykonos knows the hacker profile. He knows what is the skill level. So next time, let's say after 2 days, he comes back again. Immediately, I will know this is a very high skill guy. I will not even allow him to do anything. I will just block the connection. I will just give him a connection error. So next time I don't need to do all the hard work of trying to identify. And it becomes more effective. Once you have this kind of information, you can share with anyone else in the world. So Juniper has a service called as Spotlight Secure, where all these hacker database, all the hacker identification and the skill set is shared with everyone else. So let's say Rakesh is a bad guy. I always go to ICICIbank.com and hack. So ICICI Bank has blocked me. Next time I go to HDFCbank.com saying this guy will not know. But since both the guys are using Mykonos, immediately as soon as I go to hdfcbank.com, he is able to signature identify me and send it to the cloud. Cloud says, or my Spotlight service says, this is a known hacker. He has been blocked at this and this place, and this is a skill level. Immediately I will be blocked. So HDFC Bank also doesn't need to do the hard work or waste time on me. You can share this information. So detect anywhere, stop everywhere. So we are creating this global hacker database, sharing with everyone who wants to subscribe. This is more like a summary because people will tend to compare this product to web application firewall. One thing to remember is web application firewall works on signatures. We identify attacks based on tar traps. Tracking is done by IP address in WAF. We do it based on browser, software, and scripts. Profiling is done by only IP address in WAF. As you know, IP address is not enough. Response is only block IP, allow IP, or just log IP. In Mykonos case, we can block, warn, deceive attacker. Deceive means give him a false sense that he has broken the website and stuff like that. It's all PCI compliant, so you can use it for financial industry with all compliance. The next 2 slides are summarizing the whole thing. Mykonos will help you watch attackers on a website in real time. He will say this attacker has been identified. Presently, he's doing this. Now he's doing this. Now he's doing this. You can record the attack, whatever he did. Okay, you can record it and use it with law enforcement agencies, so that you will have a proof. You have 2 things. One is once you do the signature, you can say, "Was this laptop is the one who generated the signature?" So you can implicate that guy. Okay, this is the device you was used for attack, and you can actually say, "These are the 15 things you did." So you are violating so many laws. An important thing is once you look at Mykonos and the way that hackers are attacking it, you can understand that what are the paths which are hackers are taking, and so that you can code your website differently and take protection so that you can make your website more stronger. So you can understand from the attack itself. Pretty effective. Key things about the product: no signatures to write, and there is no false positives. Remember, I actually sent a tar trap, and that was played by the hacker. So that's why I know for 100% this is a hacker. Normal user will not even know. So there is never a false positive. When you get an alert on Mykonos, you know for sure this is a proper hacker that has come. This is a blanket zero-day protection. I'm not relying on signature. I'm actively trapping him. I'm actively giving him wrong information. Based on that, I'm identifying. So there is no, I'm identifying hacker not based on what is the attack he's doing, but based on what he's doing right now, what is the surveillance he's doing, stuff like that. I can protect any website. Important thing to know is this is for web application protection. So any kind of web application you have, what is the code? You don't need to do any customization. Put this box in front in proxy, it will start working. It can be deployed in minutes because you just need to use some, let's say, load balancer or DNS based redirection so that traffic starts coming to Mykonos server, and Mykonos server will then redirect it back to your actual web server. So he becomes the forward proxy. Sorry, he becomes a reverse proxy for the web servers, and that's how it's deployed. It's nothing much to be configured, couple of IP address, and then it starts working. Pretty fast to deploy, pretty effective. We have lots of customers, and there was this particular customer called as Brown Printing. This was a printing company, high-end printing company. He thought, what is there to be attacked over for him? I mean, there is no information, no nothing. But once he deployed this box in a testing environment, within 20 minutes, he found out that there's huge amount of hacking happening. Actually, they found out that 10% of all traffic coming to the website is actually malicious traffic. And then they started an investigation as to why are these hackers interested? Because I'm just a printing press. What they found out is this company was in a high-end printing. So normally, let's say when Apple is going to launch a product, they need to have the packaging and brochure and everything. So 3 months before the product is launched, the printing of the brochure and manual and stuff starts happening. So if you hack this guy's website and find out that brochure, you know 3 months down the line what is the product being launched. So your competitors will be interested, your stock guys will be instructed, market guys. So you never know what is of interest to the hacker. This is the last slide. The product is called Mykonos. It's now renamed as Web App Secure. An important thing is it's security by deception. Actually, I think I covered most of the points. I understand that you will have lots of questions. It's a very unique product category, but I will be happy to help out to all of you guys. Meanwhile, what you can do is go to YouTube and search for Mykonos, let's say 2-3 keywords: Juniper, Mykonos, Web App Secure. Search for these. There will be 2 or 3 video demonstration of how this product works. Maybe have a look over there, about half an hour video. You will know how the product works and how it is going to be effective. So lots of questions will get answered there. And after that, anyway, I can answer further queries on that.